Hi guys, it's Just Modest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. Stick around to hear my fantasy romance book haul. Alright guys, so there are 9 books on this list and all of the books are either indie published or self-published. Now that was not intentional, I just find myself gravitating towards more indie published books when it comes to fantasy romance and just romance in general. Now most of these books I haven't heard talked about and a few of them were actually recommendations from you guys, so thank you so much for that. I am so excited to share these books with you. Now if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram and Goodreads, both linked down below. With all that out of the way, let's talk about these fantasy romance books. All right, first up, we have To Bleed, A Crystal Bloom, and this is by Sarah A. Parker. This is following a girl that when she was 2 years old, her entire family was massacred, and she was found and rescued by this high master who ended up taking her back to his tower where she was raised for the next 19 years in isolation. Now she's dealing with a lot of trauma from her past and is living a very simple life, just trying to go day by day. And all our main character really wants is to have a connection with this high master. However, he does not want to interact with her at all, besides drinking her blood every single night. Now, this book was confusing. I think that's the best way I can put it. The author is very much in the show, don't tell variety. We are following the main character and we're kind of discovering the world with the main character. She's very naive. She doesn't really know what's going on. So we as the reader are in the same boat, which could be frustrating. However, I loved this book. I thought this was so well done and so good. I'm gonna elaborate on it more in my March wrap up, but I love this. I feel like this was such a unique story, something I haven't written. I noticed a lot with the fantasy romance that I've been reading. It feels a little bit repetitive. We have a lot of the same tropes. This felt entirely different. It just felt very unique and I loved it. I will say there are a lot of questions that are left unanswered. However, the second book will be coming out at the end of this year and I'm really looking forward to it. So if you have not read this yet, please do. I highly, highly recommend. All right, and next up we have A Ruin of Roses, and this is by K.F. Breene. This is following our main character, who is a fae woman living in this town that has been cursed. And this curse ends up killing these fae when they reach adulthood. We also find out that all of these fae used to have an animal side that they can no longer access because of this curse. Now, our main character has figured out a remedy for this curse that can actually prolong people's lives so they don't die as early as they would typically. However, in order to make this remedy, she has to go into this forbidden forest and get these roses. One day, when she is journeying to get these roses, she ends up being taken by the beast, and it goes from there. Now, there were parts of the story that I very much enjoyed. I really loved the entire plot and the world building, and I like where the author was going with it. I did not love the way the author wrote these spicy scenes in this. This is a very spicy book. I love spice. If you're familiar with my channel, it's one of my favorite things. However, I just don't like the way it was done in this. Also, the wording is a little bit juvenile. I think our main character is supposed to be in her 20s, but she kind of acts like she's 14, which is something I typically see in YA novels and I'm used to. However, it just doesn't really work with this. So I was not a huge fan of this. Like I said, it does have its moments. I really did like the lore of the story, and there were some parts that I did laugh out loud. However, I will give the second book a shot. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue with the series after that. A lot of people have said the second book gets even better, so we'll see. I would still give this book a try. However, the first one I just wasn't really crazy about. And talking about spice, next up we have The Never King, and this is by Nikki Crowe. This is a dark reverse harem Peter Pan retelling, and I am here for it. Apparently, for 2 centuries, Wendy's descendants, or Wendy Darling's descendants, have been kidnapped on their 18th birthday by Peter Pan and the Lost Boys, never to be seen or heard from again, and I cannot wait to read this book. So apparently this is going to be a series. I think the second book is supposed to come out in a few months. These are novellas, so they're very, very short. I've been very into novellas recently, and I cannot wait to read this one. It just sounds so good. I've been seeing it on TikTok a lot now, so very excited to jump into this, and this will definitely be read by the end of March. And next up, we have Fortuna, and this is by KJ Sutton. This was a reread for me. I actually read, I think, up to the 3rd Fortuna book all the way back when I first started this booktube channel, and I'm doing a reread before the 5th one comes out. I forgot how much I loved this series. This first book is just so good. So it is following Fortuna, who is a nightmare, and for 2 years her brother has been missing. And then one day a mysterious fae shows up at her door and says, if you marry me, I'll tell you where your brother is. And it goes from there. If you like dark fae books with trials and just spice and kick-ass heroines, this is the book for you. I love this series and I cannot wait to continue reading it. But highly recommend if you have not picked this up. I love that this series is gaining more popularity. It is just so, so good. This next book is another book that I'm really looking forward to reading, and that is What Lies Beyond the Veil by Harper L. Woods. This is actually the first in a series. Apparently this book ends with a cliffhanger, and oh my goodness, I've been seeing people post quotes of this book on TikTok, and it just sounds amazing. So we're following our main character, and she lives in a world that for 400 years, the Fae lands have been separated from the human world. One day, this veil that is keeping them separate shatters, and the Fae go into the human worlds and start kidnapping humans. So our main character is just trying to stay alive during all of this, and I cannot wait to read this. I think it is going to be so amazing. Now, my March TBR is a little bit insane, so I probably won't get around to reading this till April, but oh my goodness, I'm really looking forward to reading it. And next up, we have Signs of Cupidity by Raven Kennedy. So this is apparently the first in a series. It is reverse harem Cupid and Fae. I am so intrigued. So apparently it's following Cupid that after accidentally hitting a Fae royal with an arrow, the Fae uses some magic to turn her into a mortal, and the story goes from there. I just heard reverse harem Cupid Fae and I was all in for it, so I'm very much looking forward to reading this. I actually don't have a physical copy of this. I have the audio. Audible just had this huge sale where like all the audiobooks were 85% off, so I ended up purchasing this one, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Judging by the reviews, it seems like there's a lot of comedic moments, and it just seems like a really fun time. All right, and next up we have A River of Shadows, and this is by Karina Halle. This is the same author that wrote Black Sunshine, which is one of my favorite reads of February. Oh my goodness, I love this book. So this is apparently one of her newer releases. It's following our main character that she ends up finding out that her father has been killed. However, when she goes to find his body, she realizes that he's not actually dead, but is being held captive in the underworld by Death himself. So she travels to the underworld and ends up meeting with Death, and he makes a deal with her that if he or if she will marry him, he will let her father go. And it goes from there. It sounds so awesome. I cannot wait to jump into this. It kind of gives me spring and summer vibes, so I might wait a few months before I read it, but oh my goodness, I think it is going to be such a good time. And next up, we have A King So Cold, and this is by Ella Fields. So I read A Savage and the Swan by Ella Fields, and while that wasn't one of my favorite fantasy romance, I do think it was a solid read, and I really did like the writing. So I'm very excited to jump into this. This, from what I gather from the back of the book, is following a Fae royal that was in a marriage of convenience with a Fae prince, and then he ends up, I think, cheating on her or doing something that angers her. So she's kind of ruling by herself until a war starts looming over her kingdom, and then it goes from there. So this is recommended to me by someone who I really trust when it comes to books, so I'm very much looking forward to reading this. Like I said, I do like Ella Fields' writing. I'm a little bit worried just because there were some issues I had with The Savage and the Swan, but I think this will be a very good time. And I believe this is either part of a duology or the first in a series. So very excited to jump into it. And last up is a book my husband actually got me for Valentine's Day. So for Valentine's Day, my husband kind of let me go wild at Barnes & Noble, which is one of the best gifts ever. And I saw this book, and I had never heard of it before. It's All He'll Ever Be, and this is by W. Winters. So I thought this was just dark contemporary romance, but Goodreads is saying it's fantasy romance, so we're going to go with that. So this is a Beauty and the Beast mafia retelling. It's the first in a series. I really enjoy Beauty and the Beast mafia retellings. So Stolen Air by Sophie Lark and Darkest Temptations by Danielle Laurie are like two of my favorite in those respective series. So I am so looking forward to jumping into this. It is, like I said, super chunky. So I'm very intrigued on how it's going to be. But I'm so looking forward to reading it, and it's, I believe, self-published, so I was so excited that I was able to see it at Barnes & Noble. I feel like Barnes & Noble is having more indie and self-pub books, and that is just awesome. All right, guys, those are all the books on my fantasy romance book haul. Please let me know down in the comments below, what is your favorite indie or self-pub fantasy romance book? I'm always looking for more recommendations. I said this already, but I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.